Good afternoon, everyone. Now we have with us Sri Atul Tripathi ji. So I will request to the sir, please come on the dais. Give good round of applause for the sir. We can say electrifying session of the 4 A's. जो आज का थीम है ऑडिट एश्योरेंस एजुकेशन एंड अपील नाउ वी हैव एआई इज अ टूल जिसको कि हम लोग इस 4A को मेंटेन करने के लिए बेस्ट यूज कर सकते हैं आई कैन से ओनली टू वर्ड्स फॉर द एआई won't replace the humans but human without AI would replace human without AI. So that is very, very important. One must have AI knowledge. So we have Mr. Atul Tripathi. Sir is the big data and AI consultant in National Security Council Secretariat. He's a 20-year experience in the generative AI, quantum computing, artificial intelligence, big data, ESG, digester risks, cyber securities, data policies. He is a consultant in the Prime Minister's office. He has worked in the consultancy and technology industries. He has been a part of delegation where he has been represented the country at various international levels. His current research area in the quantum machine learning and generative AI. He has been teaching AI, cyber securities, quantum computing, data policy, AI ethics, and other things. He is author of the couple of books in the AI. The book has been translated in the Chinese and Korean. So now, without wasting the time, sir, I will hand over the proceeding to sir. I request Priyansi to present the memento. Over to sir.
Very good. I agree with you. That is fair enough assessment. I think so. So anything that is not natural is artificial. Now, how many of us are James Bond fans out here? Oh, very good. Very good. I find a few people out there. Anybody else? Come on, ladies and gentlemen. It's James Bond. I mean, everyone, right? Very good. Sometimes I imagine myself as James Bond. You know that? And I'm very serious about it because you see, anybody has seen this movie? Oh, yes. Which one? Quantum Solace, okay. Which one? Skyfall. The name of the movie is Skyfall. And what I like about the Bond movies is the fact that they're always ahead of the time. This movie had come in the way back in 2012, about 12 years ago. And you see how relevant it was because you see this guy called Sylvia. He talks about changing governments, manipulating stock markets, playing around with numbers. And do we see it happening today? Is it relevant or not in today's world? Yes. Very good. Do you think this is for the first time it is happening? Do you think this phenomena that we are seeing is happening for the first time in our lives? Has it happened ever in the past? When? Harshad Mehta, very good. Somebody else? Dhirubhai Ambani? Well, I think so. He's an entrepreneur. Well, let's respect the man for whatever he did. Let's not be biased towards him. He's a wealth generator. Let's respect the wealth generator. We are sitting among the people who are wealth generators, right? So let me take you one step back, just one step back, 5,147 years ago, and you see this thing. This is also manipulation. This is manipulation of numbers, right? And this is manipulation of numbers where people are manipulating and they're doing fraud. And that is what we are focusing on. Because you see, what is fraud? Why does it happen? Because there is something behavioral in us. We have a behavioral problem. Now, who's in the whose spot? You are in my spot, I'm in your spot. Who's in the spot? Because you see, why I talk about this thing is behavioral analytics is a quantifiable numbers we are looking at. You can actually quantify the effects of the psychological, social, cognitive, and emotional factors. Because we are creatures of habits, and you see, there are events, there are relationships, there will be anomalies, there will be habits, preferences, likes, dislikes, all these things combined will begin to show our behavioral issues, because you see, this is the interesting part of the game. So investment and finance combined with computer sciences with sociology will give you the sweet spot out there. And how many of us agree with this point of view? How many of us agree? Let's put up a hand. I mean, there's nothing wrong in putting up hands. How many of us agree? So primarily, this is why the frauds happen. This is why, compliances are not taken care of. And we have rules, regulations, because I've been listening to a lot of things and I've been noting my points as well from the eminent speakers. And they talked about very interesting points. They talk about verification. They talked about reduction in compliances, eliminations of high-end cases, differentiation between high-end and low-end cases, ignoring some of them, ease of doing business, automations. So I also made my notes. It's also been a learning for me as well, to be very frank with you, because you see, when we are looking at behavioral issues with intelligence, and what I'm saying is not theoretical because I've done this thing practically. I will also take you through some of the real life cases that I've done. That is where you find this risk and compliance, where you're looking at fraud. You're looking at detections. You're looking at credit scoring. Because you see, as enablers, you'll be looking at certain factors. Look at this. Look at this fact. Internal watch records. A big area we have always come. Data from the government bodies. News and social media is becoming very important. Our behavior on social media is actually determining what is happening, and this is being monitored. Everybody is watching us. Because you see, that is where you'll be having a behavioral attributes coming out, where you can report your actual income ratio, your geography, your product behavioral issues, volume, frequency, and that is what you're going to be doing all kind of an entity resolution. So you are an entity who's being resolved in multiple forms. And every one of them, I hope you agree with me, yes or no, that these are numbers. How many likes? What is being talked about me in the media sources? How many times am I being quoted? How many people are watching me at this time in the room? How many people are not interested in their busy on the phones? That's also a number for me. That's also a number for me, because you see, that's why I'm going to change my thing. You look at the capabilities we need to consider. We talked about differentiation between good players, bad players, rotten players. Why can't we make a comparison between similar kind of customers? Why can't an alert be generated to the subject of a further investigation? What is the level of depth we are looking at? Every case cannot be an investigative case. Some can be, as I've been hearing some of the eminent speakers, they're talking about cases which are, done by mistake, intentional, unintentional. What are the kind of analysis that you're going to derive from by looking at discounting, alert generation, or what are the behavioral issues of the subject? What is the internal data, past records? I am a defaulted completely. Would I be given any kind of a, should I be given any kind of a discount? No, I don't think so. I am a very small number discount. I made a mistake. How do you genuinely believe that person? So these kind of systems are there. And they are being built around, because based on certain data patterns you come to around what exactly is happening and where it is happening. Because you see, this is one of the important things, that this is something been done by me. This is a study, that this is the entire process flow diagram that I've made, because there are two parts of it. One is the entity's resolution and how will you gather minimal information about an entity. Two, converting that to a risk and compliance based techniques that I look at. So how do you make a comparison between similar kind of customers? How do you do a topology mapping, comparing the attributes of the suspicious topology? How do you define a party guilty? If you define a party guilty and is not guilty, that can cause a havoc. That will cause a havoc because you will be dragged to the courts and there's going to be a main issue out there. So you need a filtering and a weight prioritization issues also, where you're looking at output of defined risk topology mapping, matching external data and similar customer comparison. That is what the entire systems, intelligence system will be running at. Let's look at another one. Compliances are a big issue. Now, Sir was talking about it. He was talking about the regulations and the rulings. How do you pull information? You pull information from your regulatory issues, you pull information from the industry standards that are there and the jurisdictions or the past announcement, judicial announcement that has taken place. And you parse them. You filter them out. So there is a technique called as natural language processing, NLP. That's what we do. And then we look at the repositories that have been there. But look at another point out there. News media, external data sources, regulatory inquiries. All of them are past and internal risk assessments are made so that you can have a risk documentation, filings that are taking place, what are the institution types that are taking place, and the reporting that happens. Because you see, the underlying factor is data governance. Now, data is very important. In this entire game, the biggest demarker or the biggest winner would be data. So your governance factors, whenever you, see, I'm in the middle of chartered accountants who understand the governance much better than I would do. I'll be very frank with you. Your understanding about compliances, risk is definitely better than me. But I know what data governance is. So that is where it's a team game. It's not an individual game. It's not me versus you. It's a team game that we play. So when we build up systems like these, I don't sit down and do everything, imagine that I know everything on the earth and I'm doing it. No, I'm sorry, I'm not that great. And anybody who says this, he's done it alone, I'm sorry, he's not understood what has happened. Because it's a team game. You are the domain experts. You understand all these things, while I understand the data and the technology behind it. Look at this case. An invoice forgery has taken place. So what do? We look at the markers out there. So let me explain this thing in a very simple terms. This is a document, which is either in a PDF or an image form. What you do is, you break up the image into small pixels. Every image is broken up. So every dot that you see on the screen is a pixel. You read those pixels and you find out the markers out there. Then you do your OCR, optical character recognition, what you call as. You extract the information that is present there. You go through your annotation manually. It's a bit of a tedious and a time-taking task. For the first time, manually, because you have to find it out. You have to verify whether my system is correct or incorrect. You have to do some kind of a text pre-processing, cleaning, removal of non-required words, alphanumeric characters, blank rows, all these things we go through. We go through the steps of statistical validation, whether my models are statistically correct or not. And then you look at the features. Since I'm in the middle of the GST conclave, so I brought up this case. Invoice number, GST numbers, supplier's name, buyer name, all these things are brought together where you're looking at a model of the training. Now in today's world, something more interesting is happening. You don't have to do this thing over and over again. What you do is, because there is a presence of generative AI, and what is generative AI? एक तो AI था, अब ये जो नया कहाँ से आ गया यार? ये क्या-क्या कर रहा है? So the generative AI is about generating. The word itself is explanatory. Generate from whom? From the existing data that is present. Whatever is present right now, you generate more information because you're trying to do an understanding, because now what you do is, you're looking at a better framework solutions around it. So now you don't have to do something like, go through the entire documentation part. This is interesting. Has your eyes passed through this information? Has anybody seen this thing? Some people yes, some people no. How many of us have seen this thing? Few people of us have seen. Look at this. This is a real investigation that I did. So dark coins, very popular on the dark web, but it is being propagated on open media, social media terms. And what is being bought and sold? So what looks like innocuous is not innocuous. There is a deeper meaning, and this is what the technology is doing to us. This is where the investigations have come down to. This is a real life investigation, by the way. This is completely carried out by me. Fraud, because that's also another kind of fraud. Now this entire framework, if you look at it, as I said, a large amount of data is floating around, which is about customers' internal data, his external data, the view that is there, the transactions that are being there, and then you do your, apply all kind of standard models that are there. Neural networks, pattern recognition. You try and find out how many people are wearing blue shirts. That's a pattern I'm doing. How many people are wearing black colored coats? That's a pattern. So that's how you map it out. You can find patterns if you just close your eyes and think. There is a method to madness. Nothing is obscure. Everything has a pattern. And that is why that behavioral analytics was very, very important. Because we understand the numbers. When we understand the patterns, we can get a number from there. And that is why these kind of link analysis to figure out where the pattern is moving, how it is moving, so that you can do a better alert management. Let's prevent before it actually happens. Why wait for the accident to happen? Look at this. How do you do your risk prioritization? Because one of the things that came around was, can we stop the activity before it even happens? Can we figure out large scale manipulations versus smaller ones? So what you do is, effectively, you do your rapid movement of funds is happening across high geographical areas. And there's a lot of construction of cash that is taking place because you're trying to figure out alerts that needs to be generated. I will not run through this machine learning models. I believe they're slightly technical in nature. I would avoid this, but primarily this is the flow we are looking at. Shell companies, right? Now, big issue in today's world. Do we agree or not agree with this? Right? They have become a big problem. If you look at it, any rule-based engine has to be triggered, where your rules are set up. Because you're trying to do some kind of scenario generation based on some pre-configured rules. Now, these rules can come, either you feed it manually, which you don't need it to do in today's world because you have got a generative AI. So you put in your documents and let it analyze. But the question happens to be, as soon as you put in your documents, your data is gone. So would you like to use something called as ChatGPT for a purpose? You should not use ChatGPT for a purpose like this. The reason is, as soon as you give anything to ChatGPT, if you read the terms and conditions, it very clearly states, now they're going to use your data to train their models. So effectively, you are generating revenue for somebody else. So what is the alternative to it? The alternative to it is, you can download these models. You can run them on your systems. Because if you want to do all this entire database searches to analytics, advanced analytics, to text generations and text analytics, how will you manage this game? Let's look at another one. This entire system, this is how it flows like. You have something called as a customer database. You have your data pre-processing, as I said. You build your data warehouses. Now, important key word out here is everywhere there's a word data. That is the key to this problem. Because unless and until you understand what is data, you will never be able to solve this problem by using any technology. So you need to understand the word, what is data? So this data has to be understood. Data patterns, data repository knowledges, where you are looking at knowledge discovery patterns and knowledge repositories. Some things will be outside the organizations, while some of them will be coming. Because if you look at the customer transactions and data sources, as I said in one of my previous slides, external news, what is being talked about me? Why is it being talked about me? How many times am I being quoted on the social media? This is what? Can somebody tell me this? Can somebody tell me what is this? Sorry? Okay. Okay. Swift. This is a Swift message. Now look at these. Why are they in red? What is the anomaly out there? Instead of just saying the name of the applicant, the entire thing has been, it is a deliberate case, by the way. This is a real life case I'm talking about. This is deliberately been done. The star, you see that? T is deliberately missing. Look at the other things. Look at this item number 45A. Contains office furniture including metal framed seating beside chairs and so on and so forth. You are filling information just in order to distract the mind of the reader. Now imagine these kind of Swift messages, how much do they flow into the system? Is it ever possible to manually read all of them and figure out what is going to happen? Not possible. So you need systems, and that's why this is one of the architectural frameworks that I had designed for trade-based money laundering. So you have Swift messages, and you have your governance and your translations that need to be done. Why translate? Because multiple messages coming from multiple sources in multiple languages. So now you're only increasing the heat. That is only increasing the complexity of the problem now. Till now we imagined that all this was numbers and English. Now this is going to be multiple languages. So another layer of problem is added up. Standardization has to take place. Governance, because inter-country governance factors will be taken into consideration. Then again your analytics. So prior to analytics itself, so many things happen. And unless and until we do all these things, and we are building up systems like these trade-based money laundering systems have become very, very important. The reasons are apparent. I don't need to reinstate and restate that thing. What is happening with the dirty money? We all know it. Social media has become a big, big problem. So what you do is, you have a risk assessment engines, which are running on ontology designers, which are basically compliances rules and visualization rules, because you see, you will be able to find out who's linked to whom and by what degree are they linked to each other. So I'll run through this thing because I've got to look at this case. We all know who this Rajaratnam is, right? Do we know him? Rajat Gupta. We all know this guy. This was actually a true case that was solved by FBI, and they used something called as knowledge graph. So they used these engines to produce a knowledge graph like this. Now they figured out Rajat Gupta and Rajaratnam, they were very closely interconnected. And they had a connection called a Richard Skull. And they were having lunch. To that level they went off. Then you look at this. Rajat Gupta is sitting on the board of governors, PNG. He's on McKinsey. He's connected to Anil Kumar, who's on Intel Corp, Rajiv Goel, Wharton Business School. Close connection. They set up a Galilean Tech Fund based out of Bahamas. And then it is all about figuring the patterns out there. So this is again a real life case we are looking at. One interesting thing that has happened of late is blockchains. 3 different kinds: public, private, and hybrid, or consortium. Public, everybody is allowed. Private, only I am allowed. My organization is allowed. Hybrid, 2 or 3 private organizations combine their blockchain capacities, they come together. Look at this. This was done by me. I can proudly say that. This is KYC AML compliances on a blockchain system. So you see, as a client, you are storing, right now we are giving our KYC, Aadhaar de do, PAN card de do, ye de do, wo de do, everywhere. You don't have to do that. You have a server where actually only once and for all your hard copy is stored. End of the story. Every time you want to do something, you look at a hash number. That's a random generated number. And what you do is you match your hash all the time. So if I want my, so if second bank wants my profiling to be done, I will just send him the hash number. And that hash number is going to be confirmed by this KYC AML blockchain that is running. And that is going to be sitting on the server. So all you have to do is just map it out. Once stored, end of the story. Because you see what is happening out here. Standardization is a big problem. Data privacy concerns. Why should my numbers, why should my privacy details be floating around everywhere on the earth? Verifiability is another issue. How much am I true? Because these numbers can be easily fudged out, by the way. And these technologies are not very expensive. So there are people out there who are playing around with these technologies. And I know some of them. All they do is they fudge it out. Very simply. There are very few tools and techniques simply done. Look at this. How a blockchain is going to be running for an anti-money laundering system. So what you have is a blockchain node where all your banks are connected and your applications are running on at every given time period. So your regulatory and network management is running at one blockchain. Your central banks are running on another one. Your financial exchanges are running on another one. And your clearing houses are on another one. But they are all connected to a single blockchain system. One, as I said at the very beginning, was the fact that these technologies are no more about single silos. They are all interconnected. These blockchain systems, they are actually running on a machine learning layers or an artificial intelligence layers. Now, this is something I did for an insurance company, an insurance risk. So you have a claim surrender taking place. Now, why social media? Can somebody tell me why social media is important? Anybody? Okay, but why? Why do you need to collect more information? Because I've already said that I'm going to do a claim surrender. Sorry? Visibility? Why visibility? Visibility in what terms? Availability? Okay. One of the reasons, if I'm saying bankrupt and I'm going on the exotic holidays and my wife is buying bags, the most controversial term. I mean, I can see some females can, I hope, perhaps understand why this quote unquote bags is so important. A few months ago, somebody was in the news for these bags. Hermes was one of the brands, right? If I'm not mistaken. So if I'm saying all this thing about myself, while all this is happening on the social media, a lot of information is being spread around. And then again comes in the regulatory compliances issue, which you need to look at very closely. Because this is a compliance-driven industry. So you look at a complete case management system you develop. Again, based on certain conditions, you can identify whether it's a fraud or not a fraud. Now, I've been given 4, so I'll just take 2 more minutes. So one of the things that happens is, how do you build up a text analytics? All these things happening, you're pulling up so much of text. How do you do that? So basically, you look at your data sources, then you do your cleaning and feature extractions, and then you do your data mining. Again, the keyword is operative out here is data, which you're looking at all kind of techniques, and then you figure out the sensitivity or the accuracy of the fraud that is taking place. By the way, this is not a single one line, it's a cyclic in nature line. This is for your risk assessment for using GenAI, what we call as. So you train your uploading trading files and let it go through the validation data. Because every time you validate, you fine tune your model. As I said a few minutes ago, as soon as you start using ChatGPT like product, you are giving your data to fine tune somebody else's model. So you need to have a clear-cut system designed where you deploy your models at the end, because your prompts are very important. So it's a two-way interactive system we are looking at. Now that's all from my side, because I had a hard stop at 4, which I did manage. Thanks to Tarun. I'm open to questions. Well, I would not like to say it on a public forum. Perhaps offline I can suggest some, because then that will be promoting a product over another one. Not fair, I think so. But offline I can talk about it. Anybody else?
Our taxation department using AI to figure out fraud?
Some of the case studies that I said actually comes from there.
So I have a question.
Please.
So we've spoken about the benefits of AI, but on the flip side, even in the first session, one speaker spoke about the other side of AI, where the revenue authorities are using AI to send notices of scrutiny, etc. So simple things like, say for example, in GST, we have a concept of reversal of common ITC based on whether the supply is taxable or exempt. But the way the 3B form is made, there is no bifurcation between common ITC and total ITC. So on virtue of using the AI, the assessee is now fraught with a huge number of notices. So how does one deal with those kind of notices which are purely AI driven?
So here I would like to understand a few technicalities. I'll be very frank with you. I don't understand GST compliances at all.
No, my
Okay,
only
no,
point
I'll
I'm
be
trying
very-
to make is
I
that
get the
while
point.
AI is great, it
While
also has
as
a
I
flip
said
side.
at the very starting phase itself, as I talked about I took down my notes and I said that there is an important point regarding the, figuring out the important cases versus the non-important cases and ignoring them. So one of the suggestions that I will take it forward from here is that we should have rules set in out there based on certain data points, not objective. Without an objectivity, there cannot be anything out here, because we're looking at numbers, we're looking at playing the game of probability. So based on certain conditions, based on data points, one should definitely have these kind of things where you are able to ignore certain cases or give lesser priority, let me put it this way. If not ignore, give lesser priority compared to the higher ones.
But this is not
I mean-
possible, sir, because the numbers may run into a few lakhs.
I can understand your point.
Sir, what we know that AI helps the professional or the department officer in doing the work and not replaces it. But we often see that they get the work done by the AI itself. For example, in one of the department, they issued like around 4,000, 5,000 notices. The assistant commissioner issued in the same day. He just printed it out and sent it without any human intervention.
Basically what was done, they had identified the cases. All they had to do is, they had used the primary analytics around it, and they figured out which ones are the important cases. All they had to do is put it in the database, give a printout results. That's all.
I think we were better off without it.
Please.
And in ChatGPT they have rephrased, or in other language they have given. And I use these things to maybe for other purpose. Can it be generated by ChatGPT or it is my own actually? I have written something you say the drafting. I have drafted myself.
Okay.
And I uploaded in ChatGPT, correct? And ChatGPT give further improvement and give the final drafting to me. And I am using that drafting for my purpose. Whether it can be said generated by the chat GPT
Yes.
or it is initially drafted by me.
No, you can still figure it out. So there are tools like dehumanize.ai
Okay.
or humanize.ai. So what it does is whatever chat GPT or Gemini, all these tools, whatever they produce, you put it up into these kind of tools like humanize.ai. So it will give you the writing pattern like of a human being. So you see, whenever you are going to write a paragraph versus when a chat GPT is going to write a paragraph, you will see a huge difference.
That
The
is
nature of the words that are being used, the stress that is put on each of the words, the adjectives that are used appropriately, huge difference.
But it is initially written by me. But if
Still it is, what it does, it will rephrase it out, that's all. That's all, it's only going to rephrase it out based on the keywords. So it identifies the keywords, it rephrases the entire sentence because it has got a huge amount of database where it is searching out the relevant words and constructing sentences. That is what is generative AI. Thank you. No. That was, but you can make PowerPoint presentations. You can simply do it. It takes about 10 odd minutes to do a PowerPoint presentation now. Only 10 minutes. So I do a lot of workshops, particularly for students and school teachers and a few professionals, where I tell them how do you do a step-by-step guide.
So, thank you very much, sir, for your session, giving technical background about the AI and about the great insight about the AI. Now, I will request Sakshi for the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm CA Sakshi Jhajaria, and it's my absolute honor to present this formal vote of thanks on behalf of ACAE CA Study Circle to Shri Atul Tripathi, sir. Sir, your deliberation was really thought-provoking, and everybody right now is talking about AI. What we are learning, what we're hearing from a lot of people is that English is the new coding language, but I guess there's a lot more to AI and machine learning than what we've already been hearing about prompt engineering and all. And of course, the importance of ethics and mindful usage of artificial intelligence is genuinely more important than learning. So thank you so much, sir, for your deliberation. Thank you.